did he come from? The sugar monster. So here get to speak on behalf of the World Health Organization. So the World Health Organization talks about having 6 teaspoons maximum of added sugar in our diet, right? Did everybody know that? Okay, so 6 teaspoons. Oh, only 3 years ago when I wrote Beating Sugar Addictions for Dummies, it was 10. But things are changing so quickly in the area of health and wellness. We know this. We have an epidemic of autoimmune diseases. We have an epidemic of cancer. We have an epidemic of estrogen-dominant conditions like polycystic ovary syndrome, endometriosis, fibroids. We have an epidemic in all of these things. It's insane. So actually, a couple of years ago was the first time that the World Health Organization got nutritionists like me to speak on TV about the connection and the links between sugar and cancer, right? So things are changing quickly in this space. 6 added teaspoons a day for maximum mental and physical health. Now, most of us here in Australia would be having between 34 and 44. And I would think that many of the students that some of you are seeing, or people that you're seeing, would be possibly even having more than 44. I recently had an exercise physiologist, smart, young, vibrant girl, do some consultations with me, and she said, Michele, I think that I'm having about 60 teaspoons of hidden sugar a day. She said, no wonder I'm going like this. I'm full of beans, then I'm not full of beans. I'm full of beans, and then I'm not full of beans, right? So it's hard to get your head around everything that is happening in this space, but we are having an abundance of hidden sugars in the healthiest of foods we eat. So let's have a little look at this. So I'm Jamie Oliver's health ambassador. I'm also Damon Gameau for That Sugar Film. Now, there's about to be a vote, I think, here in Australia on the sugar tax. Now, this is so mean of me to say, and it's the first time I'm going to go against these two guys. I don't think we need a sugar tax because what we need is just this one slide to share with every single person we love. Okay. If I say have a sugar tax, people are going to look at things and they're still going to buy it because they're not going to understand the impact on them. They're not even going to understand what's going on. But if you teach somebody in 3 simple, tiny steps on how to read a label, they'll go, wow, holy smokes, I didn't know that. So this is going to be one of the key take-home messages for today. When you're not eating real whole food, which you should be most of the time, when you're picking up the grab and go, you're going by the BP, you're going by the 7-Eleven, you're in the canteen, I get it, I live in the real world with you, we haven't always prepared our food. We're gonna pick it up and we're gonna go, okay, number 1, can I read the ingredient? If you can read it and pronounce it, you're winning. Right? I mean, if your mother could pronounce it, then you're really winning. If your grandmother can understand it, then you're really winning, right? We want that ingredient as close to what sounds like real food as possible. So in this instance, when I was studying to become a nutritionist, I'd have 2 of these before I go to bed. Right? So as my husband would say, I was like the human vacuum cleaner, 3 little babies studying and working. And then at night, I'd just be like, oh, this is healthy. So anyway, so go back to reading the ingredients. So I look at this and I really, really want to love this and think that it's healthy. So I look at this and I go, okay, I've read the ingredient. I'm going to go to my next thing. Number 2, have a little look at the serving size. So just be really, really careful because you know how packages of yogurt come like in 2, right? So if the manufacturer gives you a tiny little serving size, which they do often in cereal, because cereal is often loaded with sugar, it'll be so tiny that if you poured out that serving size and you showed it to an 18-year-old, the 18-year-old would go, oh, I definitely eat that like Nutri-Grain, but I'd eat 10 bowls of those, right? So just beware of the serving size. In this instance, it's talking about 1 tub. Everybody with me? Because this is the most important thing. It's so ridiculously important that I cannot believe that we're going to spend millions of dollars on a sugar tax. But anyway, so 1 tub. Now, the life should not be so that we should look at calories or fat or protein grams. Of course, as a nutritionist, I can do that and I can guide people on that. But when we're eating real whole foods, we shouldn't be obsessed with those numbers. But what we should be obsessed with is point 3. I always want you to go to sugar on a package. I want you to pick it up, look at the number, and get good at one thing. Divide by the number 4. Okay, so in this instance, what is that number? Just to call it out, we can just, pardon? Teaspoons, yeah. So it's 30 grams up there, just divide by 4. That's the golden rule from now on. Everything you're gonna look at, you're gonna think, what is this divided by 4? So we've got 30 divided by 4 is what? 7.5. Let's just round everything off because I'm super bad at maths, okay? So let's just say 7. Okay, would any of you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pop it in here. Have 1. Have 2 before I go to bed when I'm studying to be a nutritionist. Tired but wired. What does the World Health Organization say that we should be having maximum? 6. See how easy that was for me to have 14 teaspoons before I was going to bed? Talk about tired but wired. I'd be getting into bed. Like, my husband would be like, what is wrong with you? You've been exhausted all day. I don't know. I was thinking about this. I think about this. I was like, what is wrong with me? I was always on a sugar high before going to bed. I was not eating and nourishing myself throughout the day properly. And at night, I became the human vacuum cleaner of everything healthy. Okay, I love doing things real time. So let's do another example to cement this. So I speak at a lot of corporates. So a couple of years ago, I was at Apple Corporation, and I used to work at Microsoft. So when I first came over here, I started with Microsoft, and I worked in the area of education. I got to go to all the unis around Australia. I was at Apple, and some guy was in the audience having a smoothie. And I was like, hey, what's your name? He's like, John. I go, John, what are you having? He goes, I'm having a blueberry blast. I'm like, that's so awesome. Blueberries, low sugar, vitamin C, underpins your skin collagen. Oh, that's great, John. You're like so winning. Because as a nutritionist, you always want to find good things for people to grab and go and to eat. You really do. You want to support manufacturers and find some healthy things out there. So I'm thinking, okay, we're on to a winner. So I said, let's Google this real time. So we pull it up, and I go, wait a minute, we're on this site, there's no ingredients. Because remember the 3 things. 1, look for the ingredient. 2, look for the serving size. 3, look at the sugar content. Number 1, no ingredient. That should be a big red flag. When you cannot find the ingredient on a product, it should say something's wrong. Number 2, I went, okay, all right, let's go on beyond that. Okay, the serving size. So have a look up there. It says 100 ml. See at the top? Okay, so it's 100 ml. But in this smoothie, right, I've got 650. So stay with me. If you don't get it, just raise your hand, because this is important, because you're going to share this with everyone you know. So I've got 100 ml. 200 mil, 300 mil, 400 mil, 500 mil, 600 mil, right? So everybody good with this? Okay, so it's a pretty big, small serving size, pretty big cup, but most people who are drinking a smoothie for lunch would drink this, right? Maybe even with a healthy muesli bar. Okay, so now go to sugar, and you'll see it's circled in red. So it's 14.7. So let's just say 15, okay? Again, I'm bad at maths, right? And let's just say 15, and then we're going to times it by 6 servings, because we know there's 6 servings. How many grams of sugar does that give me? 90. What's the magic rule of number that you're going to look at everything in your pantry with tonight? What do you think 90 divided by 4 is? 22 and a bit. Just close your eyes for 1 second and listen to what I'm about to say. 22.5 teaspoons, almost 4 times the amount of the World Health Organization just in one thing that you're having. Now, I want you to think about not only yourself having that 1 hour, you're fine. 90 minutes later, you're like, what the hell, did I just say that? I'm ready to fall asleep. I hope no one's looking. I'm exhausted. I'm going to go sit in the bathroom toilet just for a little while and close my eyes. Oh, I better go for a walk outside. I have iron deficiency. I am sure I'm a hormonal. Oh my God, my husband is so right. My hormones are so messing with me. Oh, we think it's bad for us? What about our poor kids? What about our poor kids? Right? Like, how easy is that to share with everyone we know and love? I mean, I'm going to get onto a lot deeper stuff, but that is an easy thing for us to take away and to go through our pantry. This is not about never having sugar again. This is about being aware of how you're feeding this, how you're feeding this, how you're feeding this, how you're feeding all of this. Right? It's not about never having sugar again. That's silly. It's just when we're not eating real whole food and we're picking up stuff, what do we pick up and how are we going to nourish ourselves? Okay, so now, PJ, you might be able to help me if you don't mind. Underneath many chairs, there are healthy looking things. Could you please pick them up and share with your neighbors how much sugar is in that per serving? I think they're all towards the center. That's great. Thank you. Oh, no, just I want you to read it. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So just for the sake of time, because you're not going to believe how much I can talk, it's ridiculous. Just for the sake of time, we'll wind up, and I'm going to point out a few things because I think it's important for all of us to see some of them. Okay, so most of the things that I have planted are things that have a perception of somewhat healthy. Not always, but like the shapes, for example. I put those out because a lot of people are eating those things, right? And the thing is, remember what we talked about. Number one, read the ingredient. So shapes are not high in sugar, but if you go to try to read the ingredient, you're thinking, is this a chemical maze? Do I have to be like a biochemist to read some of this stuff? Like, have you ever read the noodles, you know, those flavored noodle packages, and you try to read the ingredients? You can't even pronounce the stuff. So that's when I say, when I pick up something like that, I go, that's really kind of got to be a sometimes food. So the sugar in something like shapes or something like that is not high. I also bring those out for an example. One, just the ingredients are frankenfood. But two, also to know, having chips or corn chips or kettle chips, they're not a bad thing. Are they perfect food? No, but they're far, far better choices than some of the things we're just about to talk about. So the snakes, the jelly snakes, can you hold up that bag? Okay, so how many of you have been like me, and at night you're studying or doing something late and you're like, oh, nature, all natural, artificial, free, no preservatives. 1, 2, oh, half the bag's gone. Damn, I might as well just eat the whole bag. I don't want my kids to know that. Right? I mean, this was common when I was studying. I'd go home from the BP facing my 3 little kids, going home for the night. And you know in the BP, when you go by the little bag of licorice all sorts that's at the front, you go, oh, it's so innocent looking. It's so tiny. And you have a look at it and you read it, and it's 33 teaspoons in a little tiny bag sitting at the BP counter, right? So just on that, how many, yeah, it's so tiny.
There's 11 grams of sugars and 8 servings.
Right, so just roughly, just so you know, in those all natural, 100% free, fat-free, beware when anything says fat-free or gluten-free, that they're packed with sugar, right? So basically 1 teaspoon per snake. Right? A minty, 1 teaspoon per minty. I don't know anybody that eats 1 minty. I certainly don't. As you can see, I'm pretty much a woman of extreme. When I have a cup of tea, I've got like 3 tea bags. So, you know, I've learned how to navigate this whole world of mine of extreme approaches to eating. So snakes, okay, beware. Again, not never food, but wow, you want to talk about a sugar high and a sugar low. So if you had that whole bag, how many servings was in that bag? 8. 8 times what was the 11. So you've got 88 grams of sugar in that bag. You can see how you can be going like this. Okay, so who's got the lift? Okay, great. So, you know, lift gives us the perception that it'd be better than Coca-Cola, right? Because it's lemon, right? Is that just my head or everybody's, right? Okay, how many teaspoons of sugar in the lift?
50.
50, right. So 50 divided by 4 is actually, what, 12? Right. So it's more than a can of Coke because a can of Coke is 40. So how about this about Coke? Does anybody in here have the Coke with the green label as a prop? No, okay. So there's a Coke out that has the green label. It's called Coke Life because Coke knew that they were starting to get beat up all around sugar. So they come out with Coke Life. So again, as a nutritionist, I'm like, all right, good on you, Coke. That's awesome. I'm going to support you. Pick up the Coke Life, the same exact amount of sugar, and a tiny bit of added stevia. Oh my goodness, my New Yorker brain went just off my head. Like, really? That's so unfair to do to adults. But again, kids, perception. Oh, I'm going to have Coke Life. This is going to be good for me. My blood sugar is going to be balanced. I won't look like I have, brain fog. I won't look like I'm up and down and moody and all over the place. I won't beat myself up because I'm so sick of other people beating myself up. You know that downhill cycle of self-esteem that kids get? Okay, so lift. Okay, who's got something else that's interesting? Who's got the healthy muesli bar? Okay, how many grams of sugar in that? 18. Okay, so 18 divided by 4, so that's 4 and a bit. Not so bad. There's another muesli bar that's pretty high in sugar. It's one that says gluten-free, all healthy. Okay, well, there's another one floating around. And it's, I don't know, cost a fortune, right? Like $7 or something. Buy me, I'm gluten-free, I'll make your eyes shine, right? Like you're peeling, you're looking at it. And then you look at the label and it's 7 teaspoons of sugar. It's not uncommon for a muesli bar to be quite high in sugar and just have that perception. So usually between 5 and 8 teaspoons in a healthy muesli bar. So let's say I have this muesli bar here and I pick up a vitamin water, right? Or the San Pellegrino flavored orange mineral water that you have. How many teaspoons of sugar in that? 7. So how many people would pick up that can, mineral water with a little bit of orange in it, right? So 7 teaspoons. Take my muesli bar, let's say 7 teaspoons. Take my either vitamin water or my San Pellegrino that's flavored. I've got 14 teaspoons of sugar. Can you see how our blood sugar is going up and going down? Can you see how most Australians are having more than 34 teaspoons a day? Okay, all right, good. Any questions on that before we move on there? Sure, you can ask a question. Of course.
On this bottle, it's saying that sugar is the second highest ingredient, but in the nutritional information, it's just listing it as energy. It hasn't got it as actual sugar.
Yeah. So that's so you just have to become a label detective. Like I tell all my patients, you have to become a label detective. But I'm so glad you brought that up. What's your name? Aquila? Yes. What a beautiful name. So this is you can't make these things up that I say. Thank you, PJ. So recently I was at Knox Grammar in Sydney, a big rugby team. And so going through all this with the kids, right? And talking to the kids about making different choices. So this one boy, skin super inflamed, and he's got 2 of these, but in cartons under his feet. One was honey and one was banana, right? So he said, Michele, he said, can you just stop before you go on to the next slide? He said, I'm on the rugby team, and he said, I'm trying to build my lean muscle mass. And he said, and as you said, protein is really good for lean muscle mass. He said, so I'm doing all that by drinking milk. And he said, and if I look at these 2 cartons that are underneath my feet, and that's just a small bit of what I eat during the day, he said, each carton has 17 teaspoons of sugar. He said, am I reading that wrong? And I said, no, you're not. You're having 34 teaspoons of sugar just in your milk at your morning tea. How crazy is that? We wonder why we have a bunch of kids that are tired but wired, not having any brain concentration, not feeling good about themselves. Crazy, insane, right? Okay, so here is a very, very important truths, right? So again, you know that I write for the Sydney Morning Herald. I'm about to publish my next book with Pan Macmillan. Here's some nutritional truths that you should be aware of. You may be aware of some of them, and if not, you will see a lot of these come out over the next 18 months. So nutritional truths. Thanks, PJ. I've got 15 minutes. Okay, good. Okay, sugar. Evidence-based truths. Number one. Okay, so sugar, we put sugar in our systems, these hidden sugars, so all these things, not always intentionally, right? Sometimes intentionally, but not always intentionally thinking that we're doing the right thing. And when we have added sugar, hidden sugars in our diet, our gut bacteria goes, wow, party, this is awesome. So we've got good bacteria and we've got bad bacteria in our gut. The bad bacteria starts to go insane. It creates this thing called candida. Candida creates all sorts of issues, from fuzzy brain to poor digestion to lethargic, feeling absolute junk. Candida appears in many ways, from brain fog to chronic sinusitis, to IBD, irritable bowel syndrome. I can't tell you the number of people we see with irritable bowel syndrome. So, okay, stay with me. Hidden sugars creates candida. People go from flat tummy to puffy tummy in 2 hours and go, what the heck is with my tummy? What's going on with my tummy? Oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. Michele, you don't understand. I can't be in class because I feel like I have to go to the bathroom, and I have to go to the bathroom. I barely make it to the toilet. I feel like I should wear a nappy. This is terrible. Doctor says I can't do anything. We know this story. IBS is painful, embarrassing, silent, right? So here's the thing. When we have all sorts of gut issues or in a healthy gut, these microbes in our gut create our serotonin. So this up here, we used to always say, oh, these people are depressed, they need an SSRI. You know, they're going to have anxiety or depression medication. We now know the truth, 110%, is most of our serotonin, up to 95% of our serotonin, is made in our gut. Does it not make sense, if this gut gets cleaned up with real whole food that is not full of hidden sugar, that this will start to get okay, or at least we start to mitigate the risk factors? To me, that is so awesome, because what I see is probably like what you see. I see hundreds of kids every week in a state of disrepair. I do a talk once a week. I will get on my Facebook or my emails or phone calls to say, Michele, how'd you know that about me? That's me. No one knows that I feel that way. No one knows that I dislike myself. No one knows that I'm in this downhill cycle, this black vortex. Of course we know that. We've probably had spaces of that ourselves as adults. What about these poor kids? Really, really big concept, right? How awesome is that? By just doing a little bit of a cleanup, we can start affect and create more serotonin. Second thing I want to talk about is sugar, and an abundance of sugar leads to a lower immune system. Those people that are getting colds, flus, viruses, glandular fever, cytomegaloviruses, viruses, again, things that we cannot hit with an antibiotic. We need to boost these people's immune system. Having an abundance of sugar will actually